get the pleasure today to give someone a nice ball fade. He had a couple questions at first. He was like, I don't know, I'm gonna just let you do you. And I'm like, don't tell me that. Because if you tell me to just do me, you might end up looking like Michael Jordan by the end of this. So we established what it's gonna be. So we're going with a ball fade. He likes the length up top. It's disconnected on the opposite side. So that tells me it's more like set up as a comb over style. But I'm gonna just do all the blending work underneath and then look at the movement that we have up top to figure out, hey, what are we gonna do with that? So, you ready for this roller coaster?
Sir.
All right, let's go. I'm just starting out, setting my low guide line in. Making sure I get. Notice how I'm just putting that nice little drop in there. And the reason why I want to drop it so low is because of the fact that I want this hair to have a nice graduation, but I also need a little length to create the shape that I want in the back. So right behind that ear, right at that mastoid, I decided to put that drop in there. So as you can see, I'm not looking to be perfect. I am just looking to get that gradient set, that line placement intact before I move on. So you can see I already went in, created that lower section, that's my bald section, right? But I used a liner that has a ceramic blade on it and it doesn't get the hair as close. So that gives me an opportunity to use a foil shaver. Most people would think my liners are not good enough because they're not getting it close. My liners are actually set this way so that I can use my foil shaver to then go back with a liner that's actually set closer to remove that foil shaver line. So if you do have that foil shaver challenge, make sure that you do it that way. Go with a liner that doesn't get it as close, then use your foil shaver, and then come back with your, what we call hitters, and then take that line out. So now I come back with my foil shaver, and instead of going to that line, I'm running right up underneath that line. Just so, like I said, I could come back in with my sharper trimmers, are the ones that's actually adjusted a little closer to take that line of demarcation completely out. So around that ear, I just use my finger to hold that ear down. Circular motion so I don't really create a hard line. Make sure yep, now that should be super clean. So now I'm jumping in. Most of the time, you guys are probably gonna work systematically, right? That 0, then you go to the 1, then you go to the 2. But what you're doing is really pushing that line up the head shape. So I wanna just clear off this whole area. I wanna make sure I get a finished length up at the top of the parietal ridge, so then I could transition and depending on what tools I wanna use to finish that work off with. So I have my masters, my lever is closed, and I wanna start out with a number 4. And I'm just wanting to come in and smooth that area completely out. Still giving that drop. Come back up into it. Now, you're probably thinking, well, John, that's not cutting much. It's cutting what I need, not what you would expect for it to be. The reason why I wanted to cut just enough is because all I'm trying to do is clear out an area to then establish my fade. So that's what we did. Took that 4, mind you, clipper was closed and went right under that parietal ridge, dropped that line back towards that occipital bone, and now I have that 4 cleared. So, pop question here. If I took a 4 and cleared out this area with a 4, what number do you think I should go next? 1, 2, or 3? You tell me, I'll wait. If your answer was 3, you're absolutely wrong. That might be what you do, but this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go in with a 2. So since I have that 4, I'm gonna break it down in half. Start out with this 2 open. Use a heel toe method and rock right out. underneath that line of demarcation for that 4. Notice how I'm not worried about that bottom line of demarcation at all yet. I just need clearing out this area. This is what I like to say. I'm establishing my look, establishing my shape. So by now you should see that gradient starting to change. Just as I change my guards, watch how this line of demarcation changes. So now I went with my 2 open. Now I'm gonna hit it with this 2 closed. Shouldn't really have too much to remove. As you can tell, I'm just working my way through. Now you should start to be able to see through that density. It's getting a little lighter, and as I work my way down, you'll continue to see it get a little lighter as I go. So now I jump with that number 1. I'm gonna have him hold his head over just a little bit. Like I started with that 2 open, I'm gonna start with that 1 open and just in a little closer to that bottom line now that I have that 1 on. I don't want to go too deep into my previous cut section where that number 2 lives. Close it up. And notice I'm starting always right back in that temple area and working my way through. Now before I move on, I see a slight line here. So instead of closing it up all the way or opening it up all the way, I'm gonna go ahead and do halves. And that half should basically tie in that 1 all the way open to that 1 closed, but also help start that transition into that 2 area. Throw on this 1/16, my 0 guard. Quick flick, and look how that line is just still seamlessly disappearing. As I work my way. Once again, same rhythm. Open, now close. Because I'm closed, it's gonna cut extremely close. So I gotta make sure my flick is very consistent, but also I don't wanna push that line up. Now I might open it up just a little bit more to that half range. And now go back all the way open, using the heel of the clipper to actually bounce off of his bone structure to protect me from cutting into that number 1. Now you can see from where we started at to where we're at right now, kind of like that viral trend, like this is how it started, now this is where we're at. This is the point. You see me have that hard line there, but now you're slowly starting to see that line transition out. No guard on, clipper open. You can see, hit that line of demarcation. If I don't hear nothing, I want to go in and close it up just a tad bit. Using that corner of that blade. Don't be afraid to use the corners. You know, use your whole blade when you need to, but use your corners more so than when you're in those small areas. Wide areas like the back of the head, right behind that ear on that mastoid, you definitely can flatten out and use the whole blade. But when you're in the temple area, coming right behind that ear, you definitely want to slow it up and just use that corner so you're not pushing up too much. So just lightly tapping. I'm not applying a lot of pressure. I'm really letting the clipper do all the work. And I'm just slowly starting to close it down and hit that line of demarcation a little bit at a time. Any area that I see, I might open that clipper back up and get a little bit more aggressive in there. Now my clipper is completely closed, mimicking that line that I set. And it's actually starting to completely blend that haircut out. Clipper open, and just freehand, using that corner again. All right, so we got that gradient in there. That hair is falling perfect where I want it. This is the reason why I went in with that 4 first. So then I gave myself a balanced stopping point and not having to worry about chasing that line up that head shape. Now what I like to do, notice I didn't use a number 3, but if I stick my comb in, I can see where that 3 is necessary. So instead of going back in with a 3, I'm actually gonna work clipper over comb. Slide my comb in, and really just start knocking out any extra lines of demarcation and having a smooth transition. This is just like all of the small detail aspect, working off the shape that I've already created, keeping them nice and balanced. Using my previous cut sections as my guide. So I go in, I'm just looking for those dark areas to smooth out completely and have that seamless transition. So I see some areas where I want to come in and get a little more aggressive. But from what I can see, this fade is turning out pretty good. I hope you guys enjoying this, but you can see the tale of the two sides. That's how we started, and this is our current state now. Nothing crazy, but just a good old classic, good haircut. And one thing about me, I love combing hair in a lot of different directions. And the reason why I do that is because I want to make sure if he wants to wear his hair versatile, it all blends no matter what I do. So right now we have this heavy weight line, but if we push it forward, it moves and blends. So when I comb it back down, what I'm looking for is to remove some of that weight there. So next time he combs it down, it all sticks. All right, so you guys notice I moved him into a different place, right? Spun the chair around. Now he's facing directly forward. And I know you guys are probably thinking like, well, we can't see anything. Well, this is salon reality. This is barbershop reality. My lights are coming from the sides of me. So if I stand here, I block the light, and I need to make sure that this gradient is actually gonna be really good. So what I did was move my body out of the light's way, have him hold his head over, just so I could see that gradient, and anywhere I see shadows, I'll just come in now and make adjustments and pop those shadows out. So when I see him out of this, out of the chair, I'm not saying, man, I wish I could get that one back, or I wish that I could have did this better or did this better. I'm making sure I hit all those angles right now before he leaves the chair. Not looking too bad as I'm moving through. Pretty much got everything placed where I want it. And I couldn't ask for a better model. He has great hair. So it makes my job a whole lot easier. And it will make your job a whole lot easier when you have those guys that just have great hair. So this is just detail work. I'm just detailing where I see those shadows again, changing the body position, changing my lighting so I can see a whole lot more. So I just want to make sure I'm correct in all angles. So now when I'm spinning back around, that gradient is intact. So now this is another little trick of mine. Before I go in, he wants to leave this length at the top. So why would I go in and cut 100% of this hair off? If he wants to leave this and I go in with a straight blade shear, I'm cutting 100% off and then I gotta restructure the shape. Well, I kind of like this heaviness because I think it's gonna grow back amazing with the shape of his head. So all I wanna do is come in, I'm using my wide side of my comb and I'm using my Mizutani texture shear. I want to go up, comb this hair straight down, come in, and I always kind of start behind the ear because I feel like it gives me a better balance point. So I come in, turn him so you guys can see him a little bit more, and work underneath that line. If you start at the line, you're going to create another line. Start underneath and work your way up. So as you get to that line of demarcation, you're barely touching and you're just feathering. So as I'm working through, I make 3 passes and then I comb. Move over. Before I comb again, I gotta get my 3 passes all the way through. Then I comb. Same way I drop that diagonal back, same way I drop my comb. And I just push through and then drop again. Comb. So now I can get a good gauge of what is it gonna look like. Now I can go to the front of the head, comb this hair forward and out of my way, bring that back down. And I'm sure you guys are probably wondering, like, how come you're not going higher up into that head shape? Because I'm not ready to quite round this haircut out yet. I want to make sure that I hit just what I need underneath to keep this square shape. So once again, I comb. Now I still have that softness. I have that transition, but I still got that slight weight line that I wanted to keep just for style purposes. I like the look of it. But kind of like think about layers. If I take this hair and move it from where it's living now, elevate it 89 degrees or higher and cut it more on the round of the head, just by me texturing those ends, when it falls down, it's gonna create a lot more movement there. So that's what I'm looking to do. Comb this hair down, flip my comb, stick it up into, and now I'm gonna push. And watch what happens. Now that hair blends. I created a little bit of that softness through elevation and only working on the ends of my hair instead of actually going through and making a blunt cut. Still removing weight, but not really changing up the shape. This is one thing I love about being able to use texture shears in my work. So now you guys can see what I actually meant by having that hair go in any direction and it still blends. So now for me, I want to bring in a little shape, right? I'm not going to give him a full edge up because his hairstyle and his hairline doesn't say give me that. But what I do like to do is add a little hairline here just to bring that structure. So working off the corner of that eyebrow and then give him a nice little curve, and you'll see how it actually brings this haircut to life. gonna switch so that I'm not in frame. So starting out, I'm not gonna go all the way up to that corner. I'm just gonna grab a small section right at the bottom. So because of the way he wears his hair, this style where he likes to leave it longer in the front, this is all that's gonna really peekaboo out anyway. So you wanna make sure that's what's detailed. Now I got this little curve. I use the back side of my liners to actually help support that and create that curve. Like I said, I'm not looking for this to be super sharp, super fancy. I just want to make sure he gets some kind of shape into there, some kind of look, some kind of structure. So, we didn't want to bore you and make you watch me do the other side because it's pointless, right? Whatever I did on one side, I'm actually mirror it and do it on the opposite side. So just so that you guys can get a good glimpse, kind of sped up the process for you. So I want you guys to notice something. On this side, we have that hair all coming down and it kind of connects and brings it that life, still giving us that little heavy weight balance because like I said, I like that look. But on the other side, we have that hair actually moving forward and coming and pushing away. So what I did here, I left some short pieces inside of there and I left this little piece out, this little guy right here so that you guys can see exactly what I mean, right? So we want to have enough weight to where he just wears it messy in the front. So I'll come in and take my texture shear and slide through there to add some pieces to give me a little strength. This is where you start to get a little creative. So notice how just what I did by adding those little pieces in there keeps that hair intact. Now I could come in, weave it through, and kind of just take a little bit more out. But it's really about being creative. Looking at the hair, letting the hair tell you what it wants to do, but still having that solid wall. Now, because I'm down inside that temple area, I want to actually come in with the tighter side of the teeth and start a little blending. Using that texture shear just to knock out some of that extra density, not having to go in with my clipper and remove too much hair, too much weight. So now you can see we're gonna start moving our way towards the back. The reason why I did the back this way, it kind of looks like a mohawk, right? But really, I work from side to side. So I did my dominant side first, and then I moved over to my non-dominant side. But now we have two visual guides that's gonna help us create this drop fade and keep it right where we want it by running it off of his occipital bone. So like I said, it looks like a mohawk now, but we're gonna knock this point out just using our visual guides on both sides. So now we're working on those two visual guides. Start out with that number 1, on, clipper all the way open. And I'm gonna use this heel toe method, like I said before. Heel toe, rocking that clipper out. Look how it already starts that transition and that blend. Really simple, quick technique on how I like to get in and out of these drop fades without having to work too hard. So as I work my way through, just come in, lightly tap to make sure that connection is there, that blend is completely set. Still working with that clipper closed. Now it's starting to change. It's not looking like a mohawk too much no more, right? Now it's not looking like a mohawk too much more. Now we're starting to see how putting that shape in the beginning works. 1/16 open. Just working that bottom line of demarcation out. Close it up halfway. And notice how I start out in that center, but I definitely rock out all the way side to side. Close that up. Nice smooth transitions are what we're looking for. So I switch from my comb to my brush because now that hair is getting really short and I want to make sure I remove any hair that's not supposed to be there as I'm working my way through. Just hitting that bottom line, working my lever as I move up. And what I'm really doing is I'm visually looking for that line to disappear, but also I'm listening for that line to disappear. So I get in right up underneath there, get a little bit more aggressive. As I finish out, keep working, looking for any other steps inside of this transition that need to be taken care of. So now as I'm looking at it, hope you guys can see how and why we call this a drop fade. Everything is dropping to that occipital bone, creating a length that's gonna keep the shape intact. Those two sides as my visual guides, keeping most of that length right inside that occipital, coming off into that crown area. Now I'm just gonna go in, use my liners, kind of go back and make sure it's completely blended. Here's a little trick for you guys. If you take your liners and reverse them and go down, it's almost like you're texturing that line out so you don't create another hard line. So for me, I like doing it both, just to make sure that I get what I'm looking for. Smooth transitions all the way through that haircut. So now the real question is, what do we do with the face, right? Some guys, they're looking at their face and they're saying, well, I kind of got a beard. Can you make me can you create this beard for me? And I'm like, I can, but here we have low density here, we have low density here. So our real line would have to come down to a chin strap. And that's a little outdated. But I always ask and give them the option, should we or should we not? In this case, I'm gonna convince him not to keep this beard because this is our work that's walking the street, so we gotta make it look right. So for me, I'm gonna have him hold his head up and I'm starting the sideburn area underneath, clear that area out. Go down towards that jaw and work back towards his face. Work my way back up. Now, he couldn't have his fresh haircut and not have that, because this is your other option. So think about it. Do you want to have your client with such an awesome haircut, but then still have this stubble because that's what they want? I get it, that's what they want, but we're the professionals. We have to take control of what happens in our seat. This is a better visual overall look to have that gone, so this is my option. And don't be afraid to go all the way up in that high cheekbone area by that eye. I know a lot of us are afraid, thinking that, you know, we don't want to cut their eyebrows off. Yeah, you're right, we don't, but he still has hair there. So you want to make sure you cover all of the bases. I'm gonna have him hold his head up, lean back. I look at his hair growth. His hair is growing inside. So to get the closest shave, I want to come from in the middle and work my way back up and out. Now that hair is up, so as long as your trimmers are not set too close, you can actually come in and reverse them and then clean the rest of it up. So now you can see me just finish off this opposite side. No chin here, right? No chin here? You take the chin off?
Oh yeah, there you go.
So we're making sure we get all of that off. He said he wants to continue to look young. I feel it. I got a little grays coming in. I don't know how I feel about that, but no mustache, right? I should leave the mustache. What do you guys think? Should we leave it? Make him figure out and hide my liners so he can't go in the bathroom and take care of his mustache himself. So now it's time for the detail, right? This is, like I said, even though we didn't cut the top, I still want to make sure he has a good sense of balance. That weight is distributed properly. So I'll go in, there's what's actually hanging off the parietal ridge. So you see this extra hair? This is what's causing more lines. So I just want to come in and I'm moving my finger as I cut through to release that hair. So I start, next section. And what I'm looking for, I'm not looking to grab perfect sections. I'm just going to where that weight is heavy at. Now I come up into and just reduce the weight because he does go, he said at least 6 weeks sometime without getting the top cut. So I want to make sure if he does that, he has the opportunity to still have a nice shape and no heavy disconnects. I'm only doing this to the side where all of this hair is falling over to. Because remember, everything on the opposite side is pushing all this weight into this side. So there we go. Knock that weight out. Now it's time to pick our styling product. What do you guys think I should go with? So if your choice was Maverick Dry Paste, kudos to you. With this style, I want the separation. I don't want the shiny. So Maverick to me is like your silent disco. All this hair on his head is listening to a bunch of different music and they want to go a bunch of different ways. They want to party on its own, but it still need a DJ. This is my DJ. So I'm gonna go in at a small amount. Take that small amount, heat it up in my hands nice and good, and then I'm gonna just wake this hair up a little bit. Rub my hands all the way through, take my fingers and get that, and you see how quick I'm getting a little volume by doing this. Making sure I feed all of that hair. That's what product is. If you have a client that's telling you, hey, I don't like product, I don't do this, I don't do that, and you know, one of my favorite things to say is if you don't like product, I always give it back to them in a question. If you don't like product, do you like to eat? Of course, everybody loves to eat, right? So then you say, well, your hair needs food too. The product is the food for the hair. Just like whatever you're gonna eat. McDonald's, Wendy's, whatever you're eating is food for your tummy, your hair gotta have it too. So once you break it down that way to a client, they start to understand where we're coming from and why product is so important. Now you can see by adding all that texture in, what that finished look will look like. Now, I'm showing you that side, but now you'll really get to see how I manipulated this hair on the opposite side, working with his cowlick, opening it up, piecing it and putting exactly where I want that hair to lay. Now when I spin him to the opposite side, you'll see all that texture and that free wave happening just by using that dry paste and just by coming in and raking my fingers through and giving it that support. Having all that hair come to that side, you see it all flows. It's all about your magic. How do you create the magic? Notice I went in and popped with that texture shear so I could get that look. This is the way he said he loves to wear his hair, so this is the way that I want to keep him. I want him to look and feel the best version of himself. Notice I didn't use a lot of product to make this style work. It was about a dime to a nickel size, even with this amount of hair. Long as you rub it in at the base, you'll start to get the lift naturally. And that's what I wanted. And so that's what we have.